You're listening to Off to Market with Scott Farley and Hamish Chadwick.
Hi, I'm Hamish.
And I'm Scott.
And today, Scott is going to be talking to us about invention versus design. Sounds interesting.
Thanks, Hamish. It's a topic that I have been meaning to talk about for a while, mainly because a lot of people who come to me are inventors.
Mm-hmm.
So they've done the first bit of it, and then it's up to me to design the product for commercialisation and for the market. So I just wanted to talk about the difference between invention and design, because actually I'm an inventor and a designer. I was first an inventor. As a kid, I always knew I was inventive, but never knew what to do with it. Never knew how to make any money out of it, or commercialise it, or even make it work. I just did a few things myself, but never really knew how to commercialise it. So one day I was at a party, and a friend of mine showed me a pair of glasses that he'd bought, and they were designed by an industrial designer, and he explained, this field called industrial design. And so I looked into it, and that was my next path. I threw everything aside that I had and committed myself to university for a number of years, and taught myself, put myself through university and did industrial design. And that allowed me to incorporate my desire for invention and make it commercial. And so what I've noticed over the years, there is a big difference between invention and design. And some industrial designers can't invent. They rely on someone coming to them with the invention, and then they commercialise it, or they make it market ready and address all their manufacturing and aesthetics and safety and ergonomics issues with it. But other people who are inventors can't design. There's definitely a void. Some people can do both, and with what I do, I try and do first to world stuff. The invention part of it's really important for me, and people come to me with ideas only, and an idea is not an invention. A solution to an idea, or a solution to a problem is the invention. The idea is the idea. I think we've spoken about it before. I want to go to the moon. That's an idea. The space shuttle was the invention to get you there. That's sort of how it works.
I suppose to me it sounds like it's two. What you have there, invention and design, you've got two levels of problem solving. So invention is all about solving a problem. Like you might come up with an idea very quickly in the shower or wherever to say, well, there's a human need for this problem to be solved.
Yep.
But how to make the mechanics of how that works, like for instance, like a car. You might come up with the idea, we need to transport people to and from A and B, and then all of a sudden you've got the problem of, how do you create that? And so that's your job as an industrial, your hat wearing an industrial designer, is to solve that problem, is how to produce that.
I mean, isolating the problem is probably the idea part of it.
Yeah, okay.
And generally, the great successful projects we've had here, someone in the field has an issue, and every day they deal with the same issue. That's the problem, and they go, I want my idea is to solve this problem I have at work. That's the idea, and then the invention is the solution to that problem. And then industrial design is all about taking that solution and manipulating it so it's market ready. It's got ergonomic, constraints in it. It's safe. It's manufacturable. It can be packaged and shipped, and all these things that all the other hats come onto it. It's marketable. Obviously it has to be appealing to the market, so it has to have right colours, feel, shape, weight, quality, to make it work on the market. So there's a vast difference between the two. So what I think invention is, and invention, if you're inventing something, you really should still you find the problem. That's your idea. I've got a problem. I want to solve this problem. That's my idea. And then when you go to try and solve that problem, what I do is I set a number of criteria in my mind that need to be solved. It has to, open easily. It has to fit inside a certain hole, whatever. You have to put all these things that really are requirements of the project in your mind. And there might only be 5 of them, just directors. And what I do is I just settle those in my mind, and that takes a little bit of research. Find out what the market wants. Basically find out what the solution of the problem entails, and mark those things down. And then when you have those things in your mind, you memorize them, and everything you see, look, feel, do, interact with, think about, start to just work around those ideas. And so sometimes you can see something and with those criteria in mind, you can, that actually could work for this. And you just open your mind. It's like when you buy a car and you never see many of them, then you buy this sort of car and then you see them everywhere. If you set those criteria up, you'll start to see things that relate to your project. And it really helps to sort of solve the problem in a right manner, because a lot of inventors come to me and they've solved a problem in one way, but it doesn't really suit the market, or it doesn't really solve the problem the way it should. So we just got to go back to scratch again and start again, and really get that criteria correct first, and then redo it in a way that's really going to suit what the problem is, what the need is, and solve it properly. And then once you have this invention, which is solving of the problem, then the industrial design part of it is all about making it a commercial viability. Some people call it the innovation part of things, making it commercially viable. But I'd rather call the innovation part of it taking that whole bundle that I develop and making it commercial. That's what I think is the innovation part of it.
Right.
To innovate it, to commercialise it. But that's very personal. I just see them as different stages: idea, invention, design, innovation, commercialisation.
But would you agree that the critical element in all of this is a design brief? I'm not sure whether you actually write design briefs, I know in my role with branding and communications, you've got to, as projects take on a life of their own, when they progress, they often, when people see what you're doing and then you come up with a message, it's always good to have, especially with naming, you've got to have a design brief, otherwise you can go in 1,000 different directions and all of a sudden you just end up going down a path which is not necessarily what the inventor intended.
Yep.
But that's, from what you're saying though, not necessarily a bad thing, because as you go and do your research, you might find a better way of executing the idea to get a better solution for the inventor. So the design and the invention is very much fluid for a while until you do your research, and then I'm guessing you call it a design brief?
Yep, I do. My design brief, so I've tied up my proposal.
Okay.
So it maps out what I'm trying to achieve, the objectives and the criteria we're trying to meet. So
hang on, do you do the design brief as part of that proposal? Or
yeah,
is that
I do. I combine it. So
you do that as part of the project? So you I'm sort of getting into the nitty gritty of your contracts here. But
yeah, I do. And it's a little bit different because I do things on a fixed estimate. So my biggest bugbear about our industry is the hourly rate thing can go around. And I understand why people do it, because, sometimes it's R&D, like you just got to try and find the solution for people. But
hourly rates are unethical. Well, they are, because they're good for you, as in you don't use them.
I've seen people go round in circles and come to me with a concept after spending a lot of money and not even having anywhere near a solution.
No.
And to me, I just feel like I've been doing this for a lot of years. I know mostly what sort of time period it's going to take for certain things. Some of them, you seriously have to do some serious R&D. You can't until you know what direction you're taking. You have to do the research. So sometimes I'll quote a research phase and I'll say it might be X amount of money towards the research phase, and then if we're at the end of that, we've got to reevaluate. But we don't set a budget for that, but we don't know where that's going to end. But then once you have the direction for the product, and quite often what I do is I'll actually, before even doing the quote, have had a lot of thought about it, try to put myself in the shoes of the end user, or the person you're going to be selling to, and already sort of be mapping out what sort of direction we need to take on it. So already have a few criteria all put in place, and in the proposal I'll have requirements that are listed out, which pretty much going to direct the project in the future, because you sort of done enough research to find out what's needed to solve the problem. And then once you have that, you don't know what the answer is yet, but at least you have directions and signposts and wants and needs criteria that you work towards. And that's really more about understanding the need of the project while we're doing it. You know what I mean? So, and what you've got to avoid, I guess, there is, you talked about ego with Alan last week, which was a great little podcast there. And ego is a massive killer of good design. And what happens there is you've got in your mind have a whole lifetime of experiences that you just want to just pour into your product, because that'd be you. It's sort of like a reflection of you in this product. But the problem is you're not buying the bloody thing.
No.
And so you really have to just put that all aside. And we always just say, just check the egos at the door when you walk in here. There's no wrong answers when you're doing the design brief and all the rest of it. But it's not about you. It's about immersing yourself in the needs of or almost becoming the person who's going to use this thing mentally, so that you can sort of determine what the requirements of the project are before you start. And then once you have them set down, obviously then you just follow them through.
Well, I think that all comes down to good guidance as well. I mean, using third parties, or we've discussed in previous podcasts, the value of service provider, and not that we should call people service providers, but if you're working with a good team of people around you, the ego does get checked into the corner, like you say, because everyone's got a commercial focus and a commercial mindset, not just I've got a great idea and I'm going to look good and
exactly.
am I going to end up in the newspaper? I mean, if that's all the objective is, then it really that is not an objective. That's just looking good. That's just Instagram opportunities, which is great. But if you want to make dollars, it's
there's a big difference between making dollars and designing for a design award. And I see a lot of designs come to me that they may not have been selling well or whatever, but they're really beautiful, and they won a design award. But design awards don't make you money.
No, they don't. And that's the same in my industry as well. I mean, you get branding annuals. I mean, I used to buy them years and years ago, like advertising annuals, and used to look at them for ideas. But you soon realise that there's no when they give out that award, it's just an award saying, yes, here's the art director, here's the designer. And isn't this an amazing concept? There's nothing in that says, oh, well, when we launched this campaign, they made an extra $1 million or $2 million from that. There was nothing, the disconnect between the commercial world and the design world, unfortunately, and that's why a lot of people are skeptical of design, your design, my design, because what does it equal? But there is an inherent value in what you do, and especially when you've got design briefs and you've got a problem there, to properly execute and solve that is quite a skill.
So I guess industrial design is, when you start doing the industrial design part of it, it's really user-centric. So industrial design is all about making the user experience really, really good. And so you've had the idea, someone's come through the door, they had an idea, we've invented a solution, or they've invented it and placed it in front of me. The next step is, either making that invention perfected to the needs of the project, and then the next part is the industrial design, which is all about aesthetics comes into it, but I'm a massive fan of form following function. One of the best examples of that is Philippe Starck's Juicy Salif, and it's an amazing piece of art that is very functional, and it's the simplest way you could probably do that, and simplicity is so beautiful when it's done right. And if you looked at all the criteria that he was trying to achieve, get lemon juice out of a lemon, and he's just done it in the most simple way, and that makes it beautiful. That's a piece of art. So he had one little fault in that, and in the fact that it just didn't have being aluminium, it got can get a little bit dull from the lemon juice. But nowadays there's beautiful finishes, PVD finishes that can cover that, and it would last forever. So I mean, other than it was just absolutely perfect design for the product. But really, really good design, that one, and a really good example of form following function and the simplicity of that thing, making it so beautiful. And making things simple is actually the hardest part. You can throw technology at things, throw components and pieces and everything, you become a very clumsy product that's very expensive, and that suits no one's needs. Your profits and your purchase is the more simple and less complicated that you can make a product. One, the startup's much cheaper. You can always add features later on, or you've got to stage it up. You've got to start off with your budget, so you've got to design towards that. You're just going to make this thing. The user just want to use it. They want to buy it, they want to use it. They like the look of it, the feel of it, the touch of it. Fits in their hands nicely. The ergonomics is right, safety's correct. It ships and packages well. All that sort of thing is what industrial design is all about. All the engineering to make it work and be toolable, and assembled, and all the rest of it. That's the industrial design. So, big differences between invention and design. And I guess the key to it all still is make it user centric. Always think of the final user, or the person you're selling it to, the person who's going to interact with it the most, and set all your criteria, even when you're inventing or designing, towards that end, and you'll end up with a great project, and make it as simple as possible. That's the key to it.
All right. And so what tips would you have then? What should be top of mind for inventors in working with a designer?
Look, well, inventors working with a designer, I think looking at what criteria they like. My proposal, I always ask the client to look at it and see if they agree with it. It's their first stage of evolution.
Mm-hmm.
If they look at my proposal and I put a list of criteria that I've gone and researched and figured were correct, and that the inventor, he or she, looks at it and goes, "Hey Scott, you're off base here. I think the user needs this. I've got to readdress that and make sure I'm right." So if you're an inventor talking to an industrial designer and your idea of what you want out of the project is differing vastly from what the industrial designer is talking about, then you probably need to talk about it really early.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you fail early, it saves money. It's much better to fail really early in the piece, and the design brief is the first start. If it's wrong, it needs to be addressed, and then get it correct, work all the way through.
Okay.
Try and get that list of criteria you're designing towards needs to be really succinct, correct, and suit your needs as an inventor.
So be prepared to have robust arguments.
Yeah.
Is really what I'm hearing there. I mean, that works for any sort of design. You've got to be able to have that's why you've got to work with clients and suppliers, if you like, who are peers. If someone is seen to be above the other, that's where the disconnect comes in, and that's where you'll get conflict eventually down the road, is because someone hasn't spoken up. And you've got to speak up. I mean, some of the most successful products I've been, or design projects I've been involved in, there's been a huge amount of argument, where someone's got an idea on either side, and you've got to, if you can't argue it, well then it's not worth it. As in, if you can't, you've got to sell the ideas to one another, and sell concepts to one another, and base it on fact rather than just.
That's the key. You've got to base it on fact. Ego and competitive natures. People who just want to win an argument. They can just direct it. They might win the argument, but they might not be right. So you really have to base it on fact. You really have to base it on some sort of scientific or research fact that you've found, and say, look. And I'm the first to say, look, if I've missed something, and the inventor says to me, look, Scott, I think it should be this way. I've been thinking about this for 10 years because I've been in the industry. It's bothered me for 10 years. I think it should be this way. And I look at it and go, oh, you're right. I would change that brief in a heartbeat. On the other hand, if they're trying to drive, just recently, I had a client who just had a colour scheme he loved, and at prototype stage, I'm letting him go with it. But I know it's a utilitarian product, and it needs to be really look as simple as possible. So it's a black and white colour scheme for me to make it suit the market. At prototype level, a bit of colour in there is going to be great because it's going to make it look great in the demonstration videos. But eventually, I'll work him back into the.
But also take into consideration there what audiences you're showing that prototype to. So that could be critical.
It could be, but not in this situation. But it's an ego-based decision. Oh, I really love this colour scheme. Can we put it in there? And I sort of argued a little bit back and forward, and then just gave in on it because I know it's not going to be important at this point. It's going to look better in the video, so we can do that. And eventually, I'll just sort of bring it back around to what the actual market's going to want to see there. And it's nothing to do with me. I don't like black and white more than anyone else. My favourite colour is blue, and we ran a whole lot of scenarios through it. And when I sat back and thought what the market wants, it wants black and white. It's a really utilitarian product. It doesn't need to be flashy. The more flashy you make it, the more it looks like it's doing more than it needs to. It just needs to do one little thing. So this is just a little example, but it's just your needs aren't really important in a project. Unless you're the actual consumer and your needs reflect what the market actually will want. And that's sometimes the case. Yeah.
Great. So for all those budding inventors out there, give Scott a call if you've got any questions.
Call Hamish.
No, and then I'll tell you to call Scott.
Thanks, Hamish.
All right, thanks, Scott.
You've been listening to Off to Market with Scott Farley and Hamish Chadwick.